Hello and welcome back to the video.
Two 10-year-old girls went missing yesterday evening in small...
We'll be doing a oversimplified video today. So remember, like and subscribe to Oversimplified and myself. And yeah, let's get on with the video. There's a stupid ad first.
...town of Surrey, Cambridgeshire.
There we go.
This video was made possible by NordVPN. Click the link below to stay safe online and get a huge discount off a 2-year plan with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Trouble sleeping? Need someone to snuggle? Then why not snuggle me?
That's a bit creepy.
Limited edition Oversimplified plushie is available for pre-order for a few days only. Get it quick along with some beautiful new character pins. Look at us, boys. We've only gone and bloody done it. We beat the Brits and secured independence. Now to expand westward and conquer the rest of the continent. Thomas? It looks like a bunch of different people already live out west. What? Oh no.
So yeah, the natives, well I say natives, people who travelled from the Eastern Hemisphere came over about 30,000 years ago, 36 more like, but you also have to remember that they would advance west because they were not white. And you also have to remember that the fact that the British had an agreement, and because this was now a new country, they didn't care for that agreement, but the natives would have still thought that the agreement would have still held.
Oh, that means we can't expand. I hate my life. Whoa. I didn't say they were white people.
Exactly.
At the end of the Revolutionary War, when the United States secured its independence from Great Britain, the two
Yep.
sides met in Paris to settle the terms. Among various things,
Paris
they
Agreement.
discussed American territorial gains, and the British granted them a generous amount of land out west. However, Benjamin Franklin appeared to have an additional fascination. Oh, Canada. So voluptuous. You think we can maybe acquire...
So yeah, the USA has always wanted Canada. They always have done and always will, and that is why that's why Benjamin Franklin wanted it, just because it's land, and you know, people want land at this time.
Some of that. Quit ogling our territory. But look at those curves. I'd worry less about Canada's curves and more about your own curves, Benjamin.
Not wrong.
Many in America suggested that one day the Canadian colonies should become a part of the United States. In response, Britain suggested that many in America should shut the hell up. Well, if Britain wasn't going to give up Canada, then the two sides had to agree on where to put their border. Easy enough
yeah.
for the most part. Follow some existing borders, add in a
Sorry.
few rivers and lakes, maybe even a parallel for good measure. But then there was a question. What would happen here? Straight line.
I don't think that lake actually exists. I think it's a weird looking shape, the Lake of the Woods. I think it almost looks like a tree. And so that border agreement doesn't really work.
So it was. The border would go from the northwesternmost point of this perfectly oval-shaped lake and continue in a straight line westward until it met the Mississippi River. Perfect.
And the Mississippi's more south, where Mississippi is.
Or was it? Well, as it turned out, the lake didn't actually look like this, but like this.
There we
and
go.
The Mississippi wasn't here, but here. So in the end, none of that made even the slightest bit of sense. Don't blame the founding fathers. They were just using the best map available.
To be honest, they kind of were. And it meant that some cartography had to be done to actually get that border the way it is now.
Blame the guy who made it. But to the minds of the day, the issue had been solved, and it was finally time to start getting along. Oh.
War of 1812, we actually burnt down the White House, which then created an economic struggle because they wanted to rebuild it.
Back to war they go. The glorious War of 1812 saw the Americans try to invade Canada, and the British burn down the White House. But when all was said and done, it was pretty much a draw.
Yeah.
And once again, America and Britain had to enter into peace negotiations. By By now, both sides realized the original border they came up with was a piece of hot garbage. And since America had also recently obtained a huge amount of land from Napoleon, they decided they would need to re-examine the border issue.
Straight line.
Straight line, and so it was. To fix the problems of the previous border agreement, they decided to go from the northwesternmost point of this lake, as had been previously agreed, down to the 49th parallel, and from there the line would go straight as an arrow up until the Rocky Mountains. But
Perfect.
beyond the Rockies, the two sides couldn't quite agree on where it would go next, because both sides claimed.
So yeah, the Oregon Territory, and the British wanted it so that they could carry on selling beaver fur, because there was an important river up there. And because of that, we wanted it, but then the Americans also wanted it just because they want land. And actually, there was an agreement of a joint occupation originally, but then they had to they then looked at it, and there was a compromise of which they'd run down the river so that they could both access the river, which was, I think, a very smart idea, but the Americans didn't want it.
The territory beyond the Rockies was theirs. See, throughout its early history, America as a nation had its eyes heavily fixated on all that juicy land out west, ripe for invasion. Settlementation. America wanted to expand. Not only was it their right, some believed it was a destiny given to them by God himself to multiply and spread across the continent.
Of course.
Like rats. Or disease. Okay, guys, just before we take over everything, God definitely said this is what we're meant to do, right? Yeah, that's what he said, right? Isn't that what he said? And who was it who spoke to God? It was Billy, right? I thought it was Sharon's cat. I hear voices all the time. Well, it was one of us. There's no way we made this whole thing up to justify a ruthless collective imperialist tendencies. All right.
And yet it
In
was.
that case, let's get out there and make the world a better place, just as God intended.
AK-47s. No, they're Tommy guns. Bison. Yeah, that's why a lot of places in the USA now don't have bisons. There were a lot of trains, and then McDonald's, because everyone knows there's nothing more American than McDonald's. And
This belief in divinely
bomber
destined
planes,
expansion
apparently.
will later be given its very own name, Manifest Destiny. But America wasn't the only one interested in controlling the Western territories. At the time, Canada was made up of a number of colonies, collectively referred to as British North America. This one over here was owned by the Hudson's Bay Company, a British charter company dedicated to turning as many beavers as possible into as many felt hats as possible, as quickly as possible, and the indigenous people became a key supplier. As a result, the British were also eager to control the land out west and secure that region's valuable resources, and in particular, the Great Columbia River was deemed vital to the beaver business. So when it came to the question of what would happen to the border beyond the Rockies, the conversation went a little like this. The line should keep going straight because we're manifestly destined to gain the entire North American continent.
But, as well, America still believes that they should have the entirety of the Oregon Territory.
No, we need this river so we can keep scalping beavers. Look, why don't we just draw the border along the river? That way we both have access to it. Well, that would be a completely fair compromise that protects the interests of both parties. And there's no way I'm ever going to agree to it! Having come to a roadblock.
And that is why it still is disputed somewhat to this day.
Both sides simply agreed that for now, they would jointly occupy the Northwestern Territory. They were both free to settle and trade there. But rest assured, the agreement was only temporary. Eventually somebody would get their way. Listen, Yank, we can jointly occupy this land, but I ain't sharing anything else. I don't want to see you using my toothbrush. I don't want to catch you wearing my underwear. And I don't want to catch you using my computer.
Ad.
Selling my data to advertisers. Well,
Even though this
maybe you
is an
might
ad.
should use Nord. It even comes with a joint
There we
occupation
go.
of Oregon. And one man living here who felt the territory should be British was James Douglas, the Hudson's Bay Company's no-nonsense chief factor at Fort Vancouver. What a beautiful, unspoiled corner of the British Empire. I've got my spotted dick, my Spice Girls fan club membership, and an unrelenting negative outlook on life that
Not all British people are like that. I would like to point that out.
affects everyone around me. What are you looking at, Stephen? Yes, truly British. What the? The problem for men like Douglas was that many Americans had already begun streaming up the Oregon Trail. Gunslinging, howdy neighboring, diarrhea.
So yeah, and it was one reason why a lot of people died was because of dysentery, because they just couldn't actually have clean food, water, and so on, and it killed thousands.
Having by the thousands, they were pouring into the Oregon
As-
Territory in search of land.
As well, the dysentery bit is because of one of the most famous endings of the game is "You have died of dysentery."
To settle and farm. This, however, crowded out the fur trade, and eventually, a very bitter Douglas and the other Hudson's Bay traders at Fort Vancouver were ordered to relocate north to a new base of operations. But the Americans keep coming, and they don't stop coming. Hopped in their wagons and they hit the ground running. Didn't make sense to keep sharing Oregon when they outnumbered the Brits more than 6-1. And
Yeah, and it's true because we were so far from home. It would take us, it would take a letter 6 weeks to get from Oregon to Washington. Never mind, we also have to sail thousands of miles also to get here, which would take weeks. I think it was 75 days just to get to Boston in the end.
suddenly, the whole joint occupation deal was being called into question. Newly elected President Polk maintained that America had an obvious claim to the entire region, even implying a possible war with Britain. Fiery language from U.S. senators declared that American rifles would annihilate the Hudson's Bay Company in Oregon, and America even gave Britain notice that
Well, yeah, they would, because we just couldn't have time to react.
it was pulling out of the joint occupation agreement. The British were alarmed as the two sides stood on the brink of war. But in the end, neither truly wanted to fight. The British favored maintaining good economic relations, while the Americans had already gotten themselves into a war with
Exactly.
Mexico. So after a bit of back and forth, the British finally said, "Fine, you wanted a straight line? There's your straight line." And so, the agreement was made.
But there was also an agreement that we get Vancouver Island.
The border would continue directly to the Strait of Georgia, but because the British insisted they keep Vancouver Island, it would then move south through the center of the channel and on to the Pacific Ocean. Finally, the issue of the northwest border had been solved. Hold the phone. Discrepancy detected. Enhance frame, 200%.
There's the discrepancy.
Enhance. Enhance. Oh, too far. Perfect. Now, show me the
So, that's Shuang. That is Shuang. Can't say it. But yeah, this is a collection of islands which technically should belong to Vancouver Island, but there is technically 3 straits. The Americans wanted the strait close to Vancouver Island. The British wanted the middle one, so we can get the largest island and so on.
wording of the treaty. The line of boundary goes to the middle of the channel, and thence southerly through the middle of said channel. But there's loads of channels. So, you tell me, dear viewer, which...
Sorry about that, it just cut off for some reason.
Alright, listen up, we got a lot...
So yeah, you have to remember as well the fact of we were thousand miles away. It would take weeks, if not months, to get to there because we didn't have long distance telegraphs yet. So it would be like this. So it would take weeks, and we wouldn't think it was important because we couldn't get there in time.
Get through. The 7th Earl of Chissingham says he encountered a foul beast in the fields of Upper Fardingdom late last night and put this sketch together? That's a poor person, Darren. Ugh, next, Lord Piddlingham says he has a new mole on his backside? How is that parliamentary business, George? Oh, some islands in the Pacific Northwest
It's about how our politics is right now.
are in dispute and could lead to a war with America? Boring. Fine, let's take a look at that mole, George. And so, for now, the islands were simply held in dispute. Were they British or were they American? I'm sure this conflict won't cause anyone to die. And one man
Not yet.
who thought the islands were undeniably British was James Douglas, now the governor of Vancouver Island. He had already once had American settlers encroach on his territory and force him to move. And by golly, he wasn't going to let it happen again. As far as he was concerned, those islands were not only British, but prime agricultural land. And given the
Well, yeah. And they were agricultural land, they were arable, and the British needed arable land in the area because Canada's cold.
chance, those glubby Yanks wouldn't hesitate to start pitching flags with their glubby little hands. And so, he came up with a plan. If the British settled the islands first, then that would surely secure them from Britain. And so in 1853, Douglas sent an Irishman by the name of Charles Griffin, along with some Hawaiian shepherds, to go set up a sheep farm on San Juan Island.
At this point, we owned Hawaii. And yeah, so he created a sheep farm, and once the Americans found out, they started to get really annoyed because they thought it was American land.
And set up a sheep farm. They did. The place was rammed with sheep, 1,369 to be exact. But within those flocks of woolly cowards could also be found a number of beautiful, prized Berkshire pigs. Oh, Porky, you look stunning. You're the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. Would you perhaps like to go to the island ball together tonight? Oink once for no. Roll around in that cow crap if yes. Yes! I'm covered in poop!
So yeah, Berkshire pigs are very expensive pigs, and often at this time praised because of how good their meat was. Therefore meaning, and they lived a long time, therefore meaning on which it was really, they were several grand. They were like 100 quid at the time. Maybe not, maybe like 50 quid at the time, which now is several grand for the pig.
And I'm the luckiest man alive! But life on the island for Charles Griffin wasn't to be a perfect paradise of pig pageants, because unfortunately for him, the Americans also believed the island was theirs. One day, in 1854, an American customs collector was sailing around the islands on the outlook for bands of native tribesmen when he spotted something. Aha! I've got you now, you savages. Over yonder. Those are sheep, sir.
Yes.
Sheep, you say? What are they doing here? Let's go and negotiate with them. Negotiate with sheep? Are you crazy? I'm perfectly stable, you...
So yeah, and this tax collector, whose name I've forgotten, actually was not in a stable mind. And so he actually tried to kill Griffin.
Ratbag, call me crazy again and I'll eat your eyes! Hello, good sir. We request to speak with your leader. Out of my way. Allow me to parley with this foul beast. Hey, stop threatening my sheep. Your sheep? You mean to tell me that you, a British subject, have illegally imported these sheep into American territory? I'll have you know that...
So yeah, this is how arguments with territory can go, and it means that when no one agrees on which one's which, then you start getting people arresting each other on islands which have claim to each side.
You, an American...
Therefore, meaning on which war can then happen from that.
are currently trespassing on British territory. The Americans felt that they were entitled to collect taxes on the British property, because the island was American, and they threatened seizure if dues weren't paid. The British, meanwhile, threatened to arrest the Americans, because the island was British, and the two sides were in a standoff.
And what happened was Charles Griffin arrested him, tried to, which meant that the Americans thought that it was a declaration of almost war because of the fact of because normally when you arrest someone on another country's land, it can be shown as And it's because they can be seen as a prisoner of war that war
Because the
actually
island was
starts.
British, and the two sides were in a standoff. To give Charles Griffin the legal power to deal with the American trespassers, Douglas said, "Hey, put on this wig." Boom, you're a magistrate now. And in turn, Griffin went to one of his Hawaiian shepherds and said, "Hey, I'm making you a constable. Put on this badge." The British then went off to arrest the U.S. Customs Inspector. But, being an American, he emerged from his tent with 4 pistols and a giant knife. So the Brits had to back down.
Yeah, because America.
Eventually, raids by northern tribes chased the U.S. officer from the island. But the Americans weren't done yet. Officials from nearby Whatcom County in Washington Territory believed the island fell under their jurisdiction, and they decided it was time to make the British pay up once and for all. They sent one Sheriff Barnes to go confront Charles Griffin. "Hey, you owe us $80.33 for all this farm
And that is a lot of money. That's several grand for everything he's got.
stuff you got here. Go suck an egg." Oh, I see.
He actually reportedly said a lot of insults to the Americans.
So that's how it is, huh? That's how it's gonna be, is it? That's the way in which things are, eh? That be how it will, is it? Will it be how that is, huh? That be the way in which things be the way they are, is it? Get off my property! So the sheriff and other Whatcom County officials felt they were now well within their rights to seize and auction off Griffin's sheep in order to recoup lost taxes. And who had they auctioned these prized breeding rams off
To themselves, because they can then make money from it.
But themselves. Then, in a pretty chaotic scene, they worked to tie the rams to their boats. And when Charles Griffin came running,
Can sheep actually swim? I know hippos can't. But they're hippos. Hippos aren't meant to swim. They're too heavy to swim. Ugh, I almost give up. You know what? I'm just going to carry on doing the video.
but themselves. Then, in a pretty chaotic scene,
I think
they
they
worked to
can.
tie the rams to their boats. And when Charles Griffin came running to rescue his kidnapped sheep, being Americans, they pulled out guns on him, and he had to back down. In all, Charles Griffin lost 34 breeding rams. And he, what?
So 34 breeding rams. So first of all, you're then not going to get lambs from that, which you could sell for meat or and rear up. And you've just lost meat. You've then lost mutton from the rams themselves.
Furious. The British complained to the American government, who were shocked to hear what had been going on at their northwest border. And both governments told their officials in the area to back off. We're not trying to start a major war over some dumb sheep and a stupid
Of course, you have the British in their Mini and the Americans in their muscle car.
island. But also the islands are definitely ours. Under no circumstances let the other side have them. For now, both governments agreed to set up yet another boundary commission to decide which channel was the correct border. But it often devolved into petty bickering. The British did make one interesting suggestion, though. We could draw the border through this middle channel and split the islands between us. Well, that would be a completely fair compromise that protects the interests of both parties. And there's no way I'm ever gonna agree.
Of course, because the Americans just want everything. They always have done and always will, because they want freedom.
Do it! And in the aftermath of the sheep raid, James Douglas, still stationed at Fort Victoria, became even more cautious of American encroachment into his territory. Mr. Douglas, sir, it appears an Indian has discovered gold in the Fraser Canyon, just north of here.
And therefore there was the American gold rush. There was a gold rush, and so the Americans went up and kind of settled in the island afterward, because they just couldn't be bothered to go home.
Shut up! Keep your voice down, boy. We can't risk those glubby Americans hearing about this, or our territory here will be infested with them. Oh no!
See?
The Fraser Canyon Gold Rush attracted a heap of Americans to the region. Some got lucky. Most did not. And of those that didn't, rather than returning all the way home,
There actually is still jewellery that is made of gold nuggets from that gold rush.
many simply decided to settle in the area, and in particular, the juicy green pastures of San Juan Island were rather appealing. Believing the island was American territory, around a dozen American settlers moved
There
in
we go.
in the late 1850s. One of them was a man named Lyman Cutler, a young man in his mid-20s, and lazy as pie. He didn't want to have to clear a space in the forest to build his home, so he said, I'll just build my cabin right in the...
See, there we go, a British sheep run. So that means that they are technically trespassing. So therefore, meaning on which the Americans the British may think that they can prosecute them for it.
middle of this British sheep run. I'm sure that won't make anyone mad. When he planted potato seeds in his garden, rather than building a nice protective fence around them, he said, I'll just fence in 3 sides and have all these British farm animals.
And because it's British farm animals who will eat them because they're just in the ground.
Have a moral compass and respect my property rights.
So Berkshire pigs are actually famous for their rooting. They will dig to find food, and that is how this entire problem started.
Griffin's pig was a Berkshire, well known for rooting, and Lyman's fairly pathetic fence made for a bad combination. Numerous times he had to chase the pig away from his property, and he once angrily marched up to Griffin's home, saying, Hey, British farm idiot, keep your stupid pig out of my potatoes. It is up to you to keep your potatoes out of my pig.
And reportedly he actually said that.
Griffin was furious with his new American neighbors. They built their homes all over his sheep pastures. And besides, what right did they have to be here anyway? It was British territory. Lyman, on the other hand, swore the local government had assured him his land claims were legitimate, and so to him, the British were out of line. Look at that sick freak. In love with his pig. Isn't that just sick? Yeah, what a freak!
This one's just an anecdote for how much his potatoes actually mattered to him.
Not like our love, Spuddy. Ours is all natural. Yeah, just a man and his potato. Nothing wrong with that. But the tension between Lyman and Griffin was just about to explode. What the? Spuddy? Oh.
So yeah, then the Berkshire actually ate all of the potatoes, and therefore Lyman shot the pig, therefore kind of starting what was called the Pig War, which kind of wasn't a war but could have been.
Alright, you damn dirty pig. That's the final straw. Lyman shot the pig. After taking a second to calm down, he felt bad about murdering Griffin's prized boar. So he went to him and said, Hey man, look, I kinda just killed your pig. It was eating my potatoes again, and I don't know, man, I kinda just killed your pig. Killed your pig. Killed your pig.
So yeah, Griffin was absolutely distraught because he loved that pig, and it was a very expensive pig. So therefore, meaning on which he actually wanted to be paid. And it was $100 he wanted to be paid, which was an outrage. That is a lot of money. So Lyman then threatened to shoot Griffin instead, as well, because of that.
You swine! No, the swine is the one I killed. I'm Lyman. Griffin demanded Lyman pay $100 for the loss of the pig, an outrageous sum at the time. Obviously, Lyman refused, threatening to shoot any more animals that dared enter his property,
There we go.
even threatening to shoot Griffin himself. When Griffin complained to James Douglas, British officials went and confronted the pig killer.
And arrested
Again,
him.
they insisted he pay up, and if he didn't, Lyman claimed they threatened to arrest him and take him back to Victoria. British officials arresting an American on American soil and trying him under British law.
There we go.
Now that's controversial. And it's a controversy that attracted the attention of an American general in charge of the Department of Oregon, one William S.
William S. Harney kind of had a reputation. He'd been court-martialed, I think, 4 or 5 times. He went off during the American-Mexican War and went off on his own to take on a bunch of Mexicans, and then he tried to declare war on the UK several times, and then did what he's about to do now.
This guy, General Harney, had a reputation. He's the kind of guy who invades Mexico without orders,
There you go.
wasting valuable resources and creating an embarrassing situation for everyone involved. He's the kind of guy who has one of his own men arrested for writing the wrong header on a report.
Yeah.
He's the kind of guy who finds a dog digging up his yard and then chases it for a mile
That
and a
didn't
half
happen.
just to give it a beating. He hated superiors, hated being told what to do, and had been court-martialed 4 times
Four
for
times.
disobeying orders. Contemporaries described him as an imbecile, all matter and no mind, an arrogant humbug, and a laughingstock.
There we go.
Like I said, General Harney.
He was also a Confederate. He was from Virginia, I think, but was a Union supporter.
Had a reputation. He hated the British and was out for any opportunity to earn personal glory for himself. By some accounts, he even wanted to become president.
Yeah,
And so,
easy.
in July 1859, when he happened to visit San Juan Island, and he learned of the plight of the Americans living there, the shooting of a pig, and the British threat to arrest Lyman Cutler, General Harney went into scheme mode.
He always does.
Hey yo, Captain Pick.
I think they're using fake phones because phones didn't exist.
Yes, sir. Listen carefully. I need you to go pick up some flowers and bring them to my place later. I've got a plan. Here I am, sir. What's the plan? Pickett, you and I are going to start a war. What do you mean, sir? Okay, listen up. An American man shoots a worthless pig on San Juan Island, and the British threaten to arrest him. Outrageous. But we can use it. We get this.
Historians don't actually know what he was trying to do. Most now just think he was stupid, but some think that it was because he wanted to become president, or for glory, or just because he's or to kind of distract people from the Confederates.
Settlers there to send us a petition saying they need American troops for protection. That's when you go with your men and occupy
I think he was actually Confederate. I can't remember right now.
the island. The British will find American troops on an island they consider theirs so offensive they won't hesitate to blow you to smithereens. Then it's war. We bring in reinforcements and we fight back. I'll write to Washington, D.C., letting them know what's happening. But here's the kicker. My letter will take 6 whole weeks to get there, before the government even gets a chance to respond, telling me I'm an idiot and ordering me to cease fire. The island will be ours.
Yep.
Hell, we could even invade Vancouver Island or British Columbia. It's foolproof. Wow. Very impressive, sir.
He probably also just wanted Canada as well.
But I gotta ask, why? Well, I'll level with you, Pickett. Historians still
Here
contest
we go.
exactly what it is I'm trying to do here. It's possible I'm trying to expand America's territory. Maybe I'm trying to play the hero so I can become president. Some have even suggested that since I'm a slave-owning Southerner, I may be trying to create a diversion to help the South secede in the upcoming Civil War. But if there's one thing that almost everyone can
He's an
agree on,
idiot.
it's that I'm an idiot. I see. But hold on. What'd you tell me to bring flowers for? Because, Pickett, they're pretty and I like them! There are also historians who believe that Harney and Pickett had no secret plan at all, and were not scheming masterminds, but simply hot-headed.
And that's also one thing that a lot of historians now believe after they've found no evidence of any plans.
Buffoons, genuinely outraged at the audacity of the British and trying to protect American citizens. But the fact of the matter is, Pickett took the very controversial and extremely provocative act of landing American troops on disputed territory. He set up his camp in a very exposed position and erected a very provocative sign proclaiming that only American law.
And yeah, the British actually considered firing using their navy, but then thought that it probably wouldn't be their best idea, seeing as fighting a war from that distance at the time was really hard.
Applied on the island. It It was almost like he was asking to be fired upon. Or, again, maybe he was just an idiot. When a British official sent to the island to get rid of the unruly American settlers now saw that there were American troops, he demanded they leave. He was obviously told to go suck an egg. When Douglas found out, he was enraged. To him, the American landing constituted an invasion.
And yeah.
Harney sent a report back to the War Department in D.C., justifying his actions with exaggerated claims of British villainy. But he knew it would take 6 weeks to get there, and another 6 weeks for the reply to come back. For now, the situation was entirely in the hands of local military and government officials, and the ball was in the British court. With the temperamental Governor Douglas and the powerful British Navy respond to the American provocation with...
And this is what I was talking about. The British actually considered using force, when the head of the Navy at the time said, no, this is probably not our best idea. We do not want to start a war with the Americas.
Were Britain and America really about to go to war over the shooting of a pig? Well, if one man were to have his way, it's entirely possible they would. James Douglas had already had Americans force him out of Oregon. They had threatened his position in Victoria during the gold rush. Now they had invaded his island, and he had had it. It was time to turn to the Royal Navy. You, Captain Hornby, go to the island and prevent any more Americans from landing. Then take this register with you to arrest Captain Pickett. Use force if necessary. Just don't do anything to start a war. Wait, you want me to use force but not start a war?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that too much to ask, Princess? When Captain Hornby got to the island and saw that the American force there was even larger than expected, his concern grew. He sent word back to Douglas, who in response ordered even more ships to the island. And at this point, the naval officers were like, hey man, let's talk.
That's what I
They were
talked about.
concerned Douglas's escalation was leading them to war. And they convinced him it probably wasn't a terribly good idea to just go up to an American military captain with his armed men and say, hey bucko, you're under arrest. Please don't shoot me. Douglas gave in. To prevent any hostilities, he canceled all orders and told the Navy, for now, to simply keep an eye on the Americans. He did send one more ship for good measure.
Of
Captain
course.
Pickett, now seeing the British ships with their guns aimed directly at his exposed camp, said, see Jeff, look at that. We're about to get blown to bits. All according...
And he realised that he was being blown to bits, and then moved his camp to the other side of the island. And the British weren't happy with that because they couldn't spy on him.
to plan. Hang on. Oh crap, Jeff, we're about to get blown to bits! Run! Pickett hastily moved his camp from its very exposed position to another position, which, as it happened, was also very exposed. It probably won't surprise you to learn Pickett came dead last in his graduating class. Nearby American and British officials began showing up to ask Pickett what the heck he was even doing. Then, a bunch of tourists showed up, because a major war breaking out in their doorstep was the single most exciting thing to ever happen in any of their miserable frontier lives.
Well, yeah, look at the Crimea. The Crimea actually had a lot of tourists go over it. It was a tourist destination. It's like being in the war of Ukraine. It is a big tourist destination.
Charles Griffin was particularly unhappy. First his pig had been shot. Now his sheep pastures were being trampled by soldiers and tourists alike. He complained to Governor Douglas, who was still pretty upset about the whole thing. Douglas felt British honor itself was at stake. So he decided that if American forces were allowed to be on the island, well then by golly, the British should be there too. It would be a joint military occupation. Upon hearing Douglas's new plan to land British troops on the island, Captain Hornby decided to go speak with Pickett in person. After informing him of the plan, Pickett replied that if they dared land, he would open fire. So there they were. The British had orders to land. The Americans had orders to prevent their landing. This was it. War. Over a small island in the middle of nowhere. Over a pig. And some potatoes. Over where the...
And over nothing. And there wasn't a war, because everyone saw it was stupid.
The US-Canada border looked like this. Or like this. It was stupid. Hold on. This is stupid. To heck with it. I'm not landing those troops. I'm not gonna be the one who starts a war. The captain decided not to follow Douglas's order. And good thing he didn't, because pretty soon after that, the leading British admiral in the entire Pacific region showed up. Rear Admiral Baines outranked Governor
Yep.
Douglas. When he heard of everything that had been going on, he was stunned. But when he heard that Hornby had refused Douglas's plan to land
He
troops,
thanked him.
Baines could have kissed him. Whether he did or not, history doesn't tell. But I like to think they did. The Rear Admiral canceled all of Douglas's orders and instead pursued a policy of not interfering with the Americans until he could contact the British government.
There
The
we go.
Americans, not knowing the British no longer intended to land, had sent reinforcements and began fortifying. But even still,
And reinforcements they couldn't afford.
the British Navy did nothing. And finally, when word made it across the planet, informing the two governments of the ongoing crisis, everyone was shocked. Holy crap! Harney landed troops on disputed territory.
James Buchanan was a rubbish president. He did nothing to stop the South seceding, and he did nothing to actually help slavery and help the Union to stay, and he did nothing with this crisis.
Man, I hope the British don't find out about this. Buchanan? Oh crap! The British! Why are we getting reports of American troops on San Juan Island? Whoa. I don't know, man. Nothing to do with me. But you're the president. What? Breckenridge? Am I the president? Yes, sir. And hey, we got a problem. It looks like the southern states are considering seceding. And we're
Brecken, I think, was also a Confederate.
headed for the biggest crisis in the history of the nation. And it's your job to fix it, sir. Sir?
There we go. That's what I was saying.
No. Go away. Not the curtain again, Mr. President. I'm not here. Buchanan. Back in the Pacific Northwest,
He was
Harney
just scared of
beginning to
doing
realize
anything.
The government may not be terribly impressed with his reckless actions, so he began firing off even more aggressive letters, justifying what he had done. Tell him the British were sending bands of Indians to attack our men, and that they're big meanies with coal for hearts, and that they made me cry like a little girl. Wait,
There
no,
we
that makes
go.
me sound weak. They made me cry like a big girl. Yeah, that's it. When the president received Harney's new letters, his anxiety only grew stronger. Oh, crap. Hey, General Scott, please make this go away. Leave it to me.
General Scott was a veteran of the Mexican-American War, and he actually couldn't ride his horse anymore because he was too fat and ill. So he actually had to be craned onto it, and he also wasn't. He was probably one of the best military generals of the time as well.
Sir, General Winfield Scott was the commanding general of the entire U.S. Army. Well known for his negotiation skills, he was a veteran of the Mexican-American War, during which time he had had to deal with General Harney's idiocy and insubordination.
Yeah.
And he watched as Harney got
Hate
away with it all,
Harney.
thanks to his friends in high places. It's safe to say that Scott really did not like General Harney. By now, General Scott was racked with gout, and he was so big, he had to be hoisted onto his ship in a basket.
There we go.
Nevertheless, he began the long journey to the Pacific Northwest. Okay, everyone, get over here. Will somebody please tell me what the heck is going on? I'll tell you, General. It all
That's what everyone was like. No one knew what was going on.
started on one fateful day last summer. Spuddy? All right, you damn dirty pig. That's the final straw. What? Hey, you can't get away from me! Look at that pig.
Of course, this is heavily exaggerated to what actually happened.
Nowhere left to run, eh? I'm gonna enjoy this.
Simon, if you spare my life, I grant you 3 wishes.
Heavily exaggerated.
So you see, General, the pig wasn't even on his property when he shot it. Liar! He's lying to you, General. I'll tell you what really happened. What a pleasant summer's afternoon here on my humble farm. It's just me and my beloved potatoes. I'm so happy. Say, Lyman, them some nice spuds you got there. Would be a shame if somebody ate them. No, not again, you beast! Leave my potatoes alone! Yeah, I'm gonna eat them, Lyman. I'll eat them, and then I'm gonna eat you. Stay back! I'll shoot. Go ahead, punk. Make my day. Shoot me. Shoot me. He made me do it. He made me do it. So you're telling me you guys nearly started a war with the strongest naval power in the world over the shooting of a pig?
Yes.
Yeah, now he's starting to get it. Not only the pig, sir. The British...
And Harney kept on trying to find a way to start a war with one of the most powerful armies in the world and one of the most powerful navies in the world. It was a stupid thing for him to do, and I'm surprised he wasn't court-martialed.
Then threatened to arrest this poor, pure American soul. Thank you, General. Shut up. I don't care about you. Okay, I've made up my mind. You're an idiot. 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 You guys are fine. And you two are the most mind-numbingly brain-dead ding-dongs I've ever encountered in all my life. And I'll see you in my office. Okay, Harney.
Sounds like the head teacher of a school.
Listen, I cut a deal with the Brits. Here's how it's gonna be. Both sides will maintain a small force on the island for a joint military occupation until our two governments can decide who owns the island. Now, the only way they'd agree to that is if Pickett is removed from command. So
Yeah.
I'm replacing him with Captain Hunt here. Now, Harney, listen to me. Do not, under any circumstances, put Pickett back on that island. Okay? I mean it, Harney. Do not order Pickett back onto the island. Understood? Yes, sir. Good. I'll see you, Glubos, later. Is he gone?
No, he's still there. He's going to, and instantly Pickett is reinstated, and the other captain is gone.
Think so. Good. Hunt, you're fired. Pickett, you're going back on the island. All right, you psychopath. I've been waiting years for this. I hate you. I've always hated you. Harney had not only ordered Pickett back onto the island, but his department even notified the British that it did not recognize the
And as well, he added more
joint
troops on
occupation
top.
settlement. While everyone else had decided on peace, Harney appeared to still be threatening war. Needless to say, a furious Winfield Scott soon removed him from command and sent him elsewhere. In Harney's absence, the joint occupation went ahead, and the troops actually got along together.
So yeah, they celebrated July 4th. They celebrated the Queen's birthday, and so on. And it was a brilliant time. And Pickett wasn't the problem. It was Harney.
Quite well. The British attended 4th of July celebrations at the American camp, while the Americans visited the British for Queen Victoria's birthday. Even Pickett became good friends with
There
his
we go.
British counterpart. War, it seemed, had been avoided, thanks largely to the level-headed actions of the Royal Navy and General Winfield Scott. Of course, the islands were still in dispute, and the question of who exactly owned them still had to be answered. That answer would have to wait, because while San Juan was at peace, the nation was tearing itself apart.
Civil
When
War.
Civil War broke out in 1861, the issue of San Juan just wasn't that important. Harney, despite being a Southerner, remained in the U.S. Army, but was eventually removed from command at St. Louis
I told
when his
you.
loyalty to the Union came under suspicion. More famously, Captain Pickett, a native Virginian, went on to become a Confederate general. Pickett's charge at the Battle of
Was stupid. It was a suicidal charge.
Gettysburg remains one of the most famous moments of the entire war and marked a major turning point. U.S. relations with Britain actually soured during the war. The British, missing their supply of southern cotton, initially looked like they may intervene on the side of the Confederacy. There was the Trent Affair, when Confederate
Confederate diplomats were found on a British ship, and then the Americans actually started to boycott the British goods.
diplomats were discovered and arrested on a British mail steamer. And then there were the British-built ships
Yeah.
sold to the Confederacy that wreaked havoc on northern commerce. When the Civil War ended, furious American politicians called on the British to pay reparations. And by now, a long list of hot issues existed between them. And yes, on that list remained, 12 years later, still the issue of who owned the...
And this is why you should have just agreed to a compromise.
These gosh darn islands. That issue, it was finally agreed, would be submitted to international arbitration. The empire.
Wilhelm I actually did this, who was the great-grandfather of Wilhelm II, who everyone knows for being the leader of Germany in World War One.
Germany would decide. With the British and
Well, the
Americans
German
presenting
Confederation.
arguments, the American argument was reportedly presented with a little more pizzazz, a little more zing. And in the end,
Jazz
when
hands.
the Germans made their decision, they awarded the San Juan Islands to the United States. When an aging Douglas heard the news, he said that there was no possible way the British argument had been presented correctly. But that was that. The British conceded. And on the 25th of November, 1872, the last British troops left the island. As the Americans entered the British camp to raise their flag, they found that the British had removed the flagpole. One last up yours to Uncle Sam. By this time, Charles Griffin had already left
And this could be the end of it, but nope, still more dispute.
the island, and the Hudson's Bay Company eventually sold their sheep farm. And so, there you have it. A dangerous situation that almost brought two great powers to war, triggered by the shooting of a pig. But thanks to more level-headed minds and an eagerness for
I'm joking, that is the end.
peace and cooperation, conflict was avoided, and the only casualty of this pig war was, well, just a pig. But how different could things have been? What if the British had attempted to...
Anyway, that's the end of the video. He's just going to do some rant, but I'll do the end bit now, and then you can hear the rant. So remember, like and subscribe and all that. And yeah, let's hear the rant, and then I'll leave.
arrest Pickett? What if they had landed troops? Could the two sides have actually gone to war? Could America have invaded Canada?
This is the bit I like about the video.
Perhaps still invade Canada. Think about it. Why not? We have the manpower. We have the arms. It's our manifest destiny. Picture a future where American Mounties wear red, white, and blue and hail the stars and stripes. Where Wayne Gretzky would wave the American flag every 4th of July in the streets of Montreal. Maple syrup, the greatest American food. Banff, the greatest American national park.
There we go.
One united nation under the leadership of our glorious president, Drake. No longer shall we tolerate our smug neighbors to the north with their affordable insulin and endless comments complaining that I don't talk about Canada enough in my videos. That's right, Canadians. Watch your backs. Sleep with one eye open tonight because Biden's coming, baby. And this time, he's coming with a vengeance!
So yeah, remember, like, subscribe, and bye. Ugh.